The huge oil crisis. In the summer of 2022, American gasoline prices reached historic highs as oil prices skyrocketed in the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and OPEC's first coordinated pullout from global energy markets. 2 years earlier, two factors helped to drive up oil prices by nearly 50%. Russia's annexation of Crimea and OPEC's first coordinated pullout from the global energy market since the 1970s, also known as OPEC. Now, this caused an ensuing energy crisis and sent shockwaves through the global economy with serious consequences for the United States. However, if you've been following the news, you're pretty much aware that the United States has been experiencing an energy crisis in the past few months. The destruction of the oil fields, the conflict in the Middle East, and the economic turndowns in Europe, which is mostly attributable to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, have all played a role in this catastrophe. The consensus among experts is that this issue won't go away anytime soon. Moving on, number one in the world's in my consumption option has been struggling with energy crisis. But before we delve into how this came to pass, let's look at how our country's oil habits have shaped our history and how it may change our future. Hello guys, and welcome to our YouTube channel. If you're new to this channel, hit like and subscribe. Lots of amazing content awaits you. Do well to drop your opinion in the comments and be sure to watch this video all the way till the end. Now let's continue. Most people don't remember this, but in 2021, the US was about to be hit with an energy crisis like never before. At first, this cause seems pretty trivial, but it quickly became apparent that it was part of something much bigger, an orchestrated move by Russia and its allies to cripple America's economy and infrastructure so that they could invade later at their convenience with fewer consequences. Now let's start with a little introduction to oil crises. The price of gasoline in the United States rose by 25% during the recent oil crisis. It might not seem like much, but it can add up to a significant amount while you're still needing food, shopping. Think about the impact on your budget if milk costs around $5 per gallon. In all honesty, that's completely ridiculous. Fear, terror, and uncertainty would be so widespread that society as a whole would break down. The reduction in production and exports that followed Saudi Arabia and Venezuela's withdrawal from oil production was a big factor this past year. This whole mess is expected to cause a daily shortfall of almost 2 million barrels. And with a decrease in supply, prices are expected to rise as high as $85 per barrel. You know, thinking about it, they've already reached nearly $80 per barrel in the recent weeks. Gas prices could get a staggering $6 per gallon, which means that the average person will spend almost 50% more on groceries each month. Since many individuals cannot afford gas, they are forced to either live without conveniences and travel by foot or bike, or look for jobs in their immediate vicinity. You won't need a car if you go with the second option, because it gives you a better chance of getting hired. However, many people really live outside city limits, where public transportation isn't readily available. So it will take them a little over an hour to walk into town. So the second choice leaves us with limited employment opportunities without owning a car. In contrast, the first choice restricts our quality of life due to being forced into walking, biking everywhere with few food choices along the way. Now let's talk about the huge oil crisis in America today. One of the worst energy crises in US history has recently been unfolding. Many countries severed ties with Russia after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Because of this, oil production in these nations fell, driving up the prices. It got worse when some members of OPEC, short for Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, pulled out from production agreements, further reducing global supply. Eventually, more than 100 gas stations were forced to close because they could no longer afford to buy expensive crude oil. As these gas stations closed down, people who relied on them for transportation found themselves stuck at home or unable to travel due to low fuel availability and high prices. Carpooling services such as Uberpool and Liftline has been getting people around for cheaper rates, but it's only temporary. Automobile manufacturers are also making attempts to develop electric vehicles that would eventually help reduce emissions and traffic congestion, but this has not yet been achieved. For now, this is only another example of how our society depends too much on petroleum-based fuels. A question you might ask: what went wrong with the oil crisis? For decades, oil has been the backbone of the US economy. It is what allowed us to maintain our standards of living and run an economy that was built on free trade. When the prices of oil spiked in because of shortage caused by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, it caused a domino effect. when we cut imports from foreign countries due to the sudden high cost. This is one example where we can see how past oil crises in America have occurred due to events like wars or OPEC pulling out of agreements. In 2014, when Russia invaded Crimea, they also seized control over major energy company assets, including Ukrainian gas fields. Then recently, Saudi Arabia and other members of OPEC agreed to end a production agreement with the US, citing a lack of demand for their product. These past oil crises in America showed us how precious our situation has become as oil becomes more scarce worldwide. So what went wrong? Well, all signs points to greed, at the expense of consumers who will be forced to spend more money on this resource to live comfortably. The current situation is sort of familiar to a poker game, where you're dealt your hand and you must make decisions based on those cards, hoping you've made good choices, but not knowing what will happen if your opponents are bluffing too. Now, the oil crisis can be tracked back to 1974, when Arab members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries cut off oil supplies to the United States. This was due to their disapproval of the US support for Israel during the 1973 Yom Kippur War. In response, prices rose sky high, with gas prices going from 30 cents per gallon. The ban led to long lines at gas stations throughout the US, further encouraging people to use less gas. It took some time for the energy crisis to take a hold, but when it did, it was profound and far-reaching. Americans were left with two options: keep driving less or pay more. More chose to go less, switching from gas-guzzling vehicles like sports car and muscle cars to smaller models like subcompacts or economy sedans. With high unemployment rates already impacting many households following the 1973 recession, this new reality created financial strain on families across America. Wait, do you know what percent of US oils comes from Russia? Russia is the third largest oil supplier to the US, providing about 10% of total imports. Since 2009, Russia has steadily increased its share of US oil imports. In 2014, Russia became the second largest oil supplier to the US, providing 16% of total imports. By 2017, Russia exports accounted for 24% of all crude oil imported into America. This is largely due to Saudi Arabia's decision to cut production and export prices by 50%. Will there be any oil spills in 2022? Spills from tanker ships have been a primary issue since the beginning of the century. More recently, there has been a major oil spill in 2022, which has caused environmental disasters across the globe. The latest happened just last year with another tanker ship called Sanchi. It spilled 400 tons of ultralight crude oil after colliding with another vessel off China's east coast. Over time, the ship started to break apart, causing leakage from different parts of the boat. For our modern civilization, oil is like oxygen we breathe. It is used as an input to production of almost anything from gasoline to electronics. But let's imagine there wasn't any more oil. What then? What? There are no more places to get gas? Stop using petroleum-based plastics in your water bottles? That's the question that started to trouble the US population. The United States saw its domestic production of oil peak, and imports rise sharply after the Arab oil embargo. Rising prices due to shortage led to long lines at gas stations across the country. Some people waited for hours just for a few gallons of fuel, just to be able to go to work or run some errands. With the world's second largest reserve behind Saudi Arabia, Canada had the potential to be our new savior. But with only 2 refineries capable of processing heavy crude in existence, it couldn't come close to meeting our demand. If you enjoyed this video, the like and subscribe buttons are right there. Remember to hit it. You don't want to miss any more videos like this, so hit the bell notification now, and see you in the next one.